Now don't let those cool, crisp autumn days fool you. The garden is full of inspiration and ideas. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. We'll take a look at ways to bring nature indoors during the cold months ahead. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to today's show. You know, there's something about the fall I really love. I guess one of the reasons is because there's so much going on. For instance, leaves are changing colors at every turn. Flowers are producing lovely seed pods. And there's so much to be harvested from nature for interesting decorations and craft projects. And then there's the food. Oh my goodness, there's so many great recipes that are perfect for this time of year. I couldn't possibly cover them all in today's show, but I do have many of them posted on my website. Now, I do want to share with you a great tasting soup recipe that's easy to make and sure to please. We'll also visit the Biltmore estate in Asheville, North Carolina, America's largest private residence, and see how they're preparing for the holidays, and get some tips on making the home a festive place during the winter. It all starts right after the break, so don't go away. Okay, so how would you decorate a 250-room house for the Christmas holidays? The crew and I saw firsthand on a winter trip to the Biltmore estate in North Carolina, where the holiday spirit was in full swing. The Biltmore is the largest privately owned home in the country. The floral design staff has gathered beauty from the estate's woodlands and gardens to help decorate Christmas in a grand style. During our visit, we discovered some incredible decorations, such as an exquisite nativity and elegant all-natural floral arrangements, all put into place by an energetic staff that works tirelessly behind the scenes. You know, during the holidays, they get over 220,000 visitors through this house. It's really amazing. People come to see the beautiful holiday decorations. Some of the most impressive are the Christmas trees. There are over 35 trees throughout the house, and one of the largest is here in the banquet hall. It's over 40 feet tall. To find out more about the Christmas trees here at Biltmore, I spoke with Ann Brightman, the Floral Displays crew leader. I noticed all the Christmas trees are lighted beautifully, I might add. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'll tell the crew about that. Well, we try to keep the lights on the tree very subdued. We don't do a lot of heavy lights on the tree. You know, like this 14-foot tree has 26 strands of lights. For a tree this size, you know, that's not heavily lit. And that way we just have a very soft glow.
Inspired by what you saw at Biltmore? Well, a little later in the show, we'll take a look at some flower arrangements and projects that help us to capture the spirit of the season by bringing the garden indoors. But first, let's take a look at a way to have blooms indoors during the cold of winter with 2 orchid arrangements. More and more people are growing orchids because they're more readily available and the price has come down. They're actually very good value if you're looking for a splash of color in your home. I'm going to put together a living flower arrangement that will actually last a month or more. The orchids will be center stage, but to pull this off, I'm going to have a support cast of other houseplants. So I'm picking up a few ivies and some prayer plants because they're as durable as the orchids themselves. Putting together an arrangement like this is really simple. All you need besides the plants themselves is a container to put them in, some moss, a few sandwich bags, and rubber bands. Now the reason I chose these plants is because of their form. The orchids will be tall and spiky in the center of the arrangement. I chose this prayer plant because it has a broad leaf and there's a little bit of the purple veining in it that picks up the color in the orchid. This ivy with its long runners will cascade gracefully over the edge of the containers. Now since these orchids were a little more expensive, I'm going to keep them in the containers they were grown in and just place them here in the center. Since the orchids will take up the majority of the room in the container, I'm going to put the other plants in these sandwich bags, which will give me the most flexibility as I put the arrangement together. Once the plants are in place, I fill in the open spaces with sheet moss. I've used orchids for their long bloom time, but just about any combination will work and just follow the same principles. It's all a matter of using your imagination. It's always interested me how certain plants gain certain reputations. Take the orchid, for instance. Many people consider it difficult to grow, but it's actually not fussy at all, particularly these Phalaenopsis. And this time of year, there's nothing like a beautiful flowering orchid in your home to give it a little life. And in the midwinter, often garden centers and nurseries have the best selection. These plants can often be so covered in bloom, they need to be staked. But when it comes to staking and preparing orchids for my home, I like to take the approach that simpler is better, and I always like to use natural materials. For instance, in staking, I like to use these lichen-covered twigs. Any type of twig will do. You just want to make sure it has a nice, gentle arc, and you can remove any side stems. And then just stick it into the container, and it will serve as a stake. Next, gently tie the stem of the orchid to the stake with some raffia. And then at the base of the plant, use some sheet moss, which you can pick up at a local florist. This approach to styling orchids will work whether your home is casual or more formal. This is an all-natural approach to working with orchids that makes a lot of sense to me because the lichen grows on the stems and many orchid species literally grow in trees. If you like the winter color you're seeing, you'll want to stick around because after the break, I'll show you what you can plant to have color in the garden during those cold months. So stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Alan Smith. If you're enjoying a colorful fall but aren't at all looking forward to the winter because you believe that winter gardens are dull and boring, then I've got a video scrapbook you'll want to see. I've assembled some of my favorite plants for bringing color to the winter garden. I like to plant pansies and violas in large drifts throughout my garden. They're the perfect companions to spring flowering bulbs, and in my garden they bloom continuously through the winter. For the best performance, plant violas and pansies in full sun, although violas will tolerate a bit more shade. Now, old-fashioned snowflakes are those delightful white teardrop-shaped blooms that adorn so many woodland gardens. You need to plant these bulbs in the fall, in partial to full sun and rich, well-drained soil. Sometimes I find Iris reticulata emerging through crusts of snow in my garden. It's one of the first things to bloom. And of course, you can't beat crocus for braving the cold. The delicate cup-shaped blooms emerge in late winter and serve as a gentle reminder that spring is imminent. Now, we can't forget about the shrubs. Winter honeysuckle is one of my favorite. It's an old-fashioned plant that can fill the garden with fragrance as early as January. And beware, because it can grow 8 to 10 feet tall and up to 8 feet wide. Witch hazel's another winter wonder that produces interesting spider-like blooms that give off a nice delicate fragrance. This subtle shrub is sure to lighten up any dull gray winter day. Now, winter jasmine is another winter flowering shrub you should consider. It has subtle beauty when isolated, but when planted collectively as a group, it can make quite a statement. Late in January, the plants are covered with tiny lemon yellow blooms. I consider berries and fruit the flowers of winter. Not only do they add color to the garden, but they also serve as a source of food for birds. Take, for instance, roses. Now, the hip of a rose is actually its fruit, and some of the best hip producers are rugosa roses. Just look at the size of some of these. As you can see, they produce lovely orange-red hips that are extremely cold tolerant. Now, you'll want to plant these in a sunny spot where they get plenty of air circulation for the best performance. The classic American holly is a plant that I've always considered one of the most noble trees in the southeastern forest. If you've ever examined a fully ripened holly berry closely, you'll find that there's such an intense shade of red that they almost appear to glow. These hollies need full sun to partial shade and well-drained soil. Now, be advised, they can grow up to 50 feet tall with a 30-foot root spread. And oh yeah, you need to remember that American hollies require a male pollinator within 300 feet to bear fruit. so be sure you consult a local greenhouse or nursery. Now, not all hollies are evergreens. Take a look at this one, which is a deciduous holly. Nothing like it to break up the gray pall of winter. A well-buried tree can easily be the center of attention in any landscape. Now, you just can't say enough good things about crabapples. My Narragansett crabapples are beautiful in every season. In the fall and winter, they produce small clusters of light red fruit. I think the birds appreciate them even more than I do. Now, crabapples thrive in full sun, but they will tolerate light shade. Now, we've only just scratched the surface when it comes to plants that can bring beauty and interest during the winter. Now, if you didn't pick up on all of those names of those gorgeous plants, you can always go to my website, palensmith.com. They're listed there. Now, there's some other ways to bring beauty and interest indoors. It's a great way to enjoy them during these cold months ahead. So stick around for a few ideas that I hope will inspire you to get creative this fall and winter. Just take a look at these. These are exotic geraniums, a new series of that old classic geranium we all know and love. Just look at those gorgeous scarlet blooms. Besides those really unique flowers, there's foliage with interesting patterns, such as dark bands or zones on the leaves. Now, over the years of using geraniums, I've discovered that certain ways of caring for them can actually help improve their performance. For instance, when it comes to feeding, particularly in containers, I like to use a liquid fertilizer that's high in phosphorus, like 15-30-15. This will help promote blooming. You see, phosphorus is the middle number on the fertilizer label. Since constant watering can wash out or leach nutrients from the soil, I feed mine regularly, at least every 2 weeks or so during the growing season. This encourages them to set plenty of flower buds. I've also found that geraniums prefer cooler temperatures, so I give my plants only morning light and protection from hot afternoon sun. You see, too much heat will rob them of their vigor and keep them from flowering. I really enjoy extending the garden from season to season, which is why I came up with several projects that help me to bring the outdoors in during the late fall and early winter. So let's take a look at a few of them for inspiration. The first is a series of arrangements that are perfect accents inside your home after Thanksgiving. This arrangement uses white roses and greenery. White is so refreshing, and you can pick up a bundle of roses at your local florist or even grocery store. And speaking of grocery store, this next ensemble requires a trip down the produce aisle. You see, apples and pears are key here. And poinsettias are accented with Christmas ornaments for a striking combination. Now, you can get the details on how to put all of these together on my website. That's palensmith.com. Now, this next project is really simple, and it requires the use of a tray. You can see here I've used a simple metal tray and placed a hurricane globe and a candle in the center. And I've accented it with the red berries of this deciduous holly. They're very striking. These are just a few ways by using your imagination you can bring nature indoors. Okay, now it's time to answer some viewer mail. I have an email here from Brenda in Batesville, Arkansas. She writes, "Hi, Alan. I enjoy your show and all the information you give, but I have one huge problem. How in the heck do you keep squirrels out of your flower beds? They dig up everything, and I've done everything short of shooting them. I like squirrels, but I love my flowers. Please help." Well, you know, Brenda, that's a problem a lot of us have. Squirrels are a cute nuisance that many gardeners have to deal with, but there are some ways we can coexist. First of all, squirrels eat nuts, buds, fruits, and sometimes break off new growth from trees and shrubs, which means fruit trees are often prime targets. These furry little pests also steal tulips and other spring flowering bulbs such as crocus. But here's what I do to prevent squirrels from getting the best of my spring crop. You see, I dig large holes for my spring bulbs and then plant them and spread chicken wire over the top. Now remember, you can also plant squirrel-proof bulbs like daffodils. I I've also heard reports from other gardeners that squirrels don't care for plants like Santolina, Artemisia, and even Verbena, so you may give these a try. Now, a safe approach to keeping squirrels from eating your tender plants is to use an organic spray of hot pepper sauce once a week. Now, Brenda, I know this doesn't have anything to do with plants, but everyone has trouble with squirrels and bird feeders. So bird feeders should be placed at least 6 feet from a squirrel's jumping off point, typically tree limbs, power lines, fences, or rooftops. If you have a question or a comment, feel free to check out my website. That's pallensmith.com. You see, each week I answer viewer mail, and who knows, I may answer one of your questions here on the show. Now, right after the break, I want to share a delicious soup recipe with you. It's perfect for those autumn and winter chilly days. One of the greatest pleasures in winter for me is to slow down just a bit and enjoy some of those hot, savory dishes. I'm preparing one of my favorites, garlic lentil soup. It's a delicious way to warm up those cold, crisp days. Let me show you how easy it is to make. I start with 2 1/3 cups of dried lentils that I've soaked in water overnight. You see, soaking them allows them to cook faster. Then I add about 8 cups of water and about 6 to 7 chicken bouillon cubes and bring them to a slow boil for about 40 minutes. You won't believe what the chicken broth from the bouillon does for the flavor. While the lentils are cooking, I'm going to prepare a sauté. Now, this simply consists of 2 yellow onions chopped, about a cup of sliced mushrooms, a cup of celery, and garlic, can't forget about that, about 10 cloves. To prepare the garlic, I just peel the skin from the cloves and crush them with a knife before adding them to the sauté. Now, with all the ingredients prepared, I'll sauté this with about 3 tablespoons of olive oil for 10 minutes at a medium heat. Now, once the onions are soft, I'll add the entire mixture to the lentils. As a finishing touch, I'll add some lemon pepper, salt, and a couple of bay leaves. Now, this recipe makes enough to serve 8 to 10 people. And what a delicious and easy way to enjoy the winter. I hope you'll enjoy that recipe straight from my kitchen to yours, and many of the ideas that we've talked about in today's show that help you bring a bit of the garden indoors during the cold months, like those fresh arrangements and easy to assemble centerpieces. And remember, my website is always there for you. It's full of information that will help you blur the lines between inside and out. Well, that's all for today's show. Just remember, get out there and grow something. Until next time, from the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.